apologize, but I can start talking, actually. I know you all have been very patient. Thank you very much for that. And I do apologize. I hope at some point this will come up, but let's start the conversation. I think, let's not be awkward. I know it's a little bit awkward for me, so cut me some slack here. Right, okay, so since you're here, I'm assuming you've either heard about composability or you've not heard about it at all. So show of hands, how many of you have actually heard about Composable Enterprise or maybe have been reading about it or interested in it? Fantastic. So this is an informed audience then. You all have heard about it. So a lot of the Composable Enterprise talks have actually started coming out just over the last 12 months. That's because Gartner started talking about it, so the market trend setting. So I have two kinds of events where I go into the integration or enterprise business events where people have heard about it from Gartner and they want to go hear more. And then I go into the other events, which is quite actually on the Salesforce ecosystem, but people are not that aware. So they don't even know what to expect from the session, essentially. I've had customers tell me, well, yeah, but Salesforce is a monolith, right? I mean, you're talking about Composable Enterprise, but you work for Salesforce. Like, doesn't fit in. So let me start with a little bit of introduction to myself. My name is Emely Patra. I head the EMEA Customer Success Strategy and Architecture team for Salesforce, specifically MuleSoft Cloud. And I've been with Salesforce since 2015. And just a little bit of credibility gaining here. I'm also a Salesforce certified technical architect, so I actually know the architecture side, hopefully well, at least on paper. So that's why I'm here talking about composability, because that's the direction enterprise architecture is moving. And it's just not enterprise architecture from a technical perspective. A lot of people don't realize that architecture and composability is as business focused as it is enterprise technical and architecture focused. And like I said, I don't fit into anywhere, with the audience because I'm not technical, I'm not business, but I'm talking about, how can you both work together to do composability? So if I can get my slides, actually, I have a few slides on how does a business and technical architects work together, and how do both parts of an organization talk about composability. But I'm a big Simon Sinek fan, and I always like to start with the why, if you've watched one of his TED talks. And the why here is because change is inevitable and growth is optional, right? And that's the simple why. We are changing, we like it or not. The environment around us is changing. We are changing as human beings. We're changing, our world's changing. But do the enterprise choose to grow with the change or not is purely an enterprise's choice. And that's why we talk about composability as such an important aspect to enterprise. Because if you just look at the word, it means flexibility, being flexible to the environment that you're in, So when I talk about composability, really the reason is because there's so much change and there's so much digital disruption that's happened over the years. Especially in the last 2 years, coming out of the pandemic, we've seen a massive shift. Now, one of the enterprise CIO surveys we did last year, we call it the Benchmark Connectivity Report, said just over 1 year, 58% of all customer touchpoints with an enterprise went digital. Just in 1 year. It used to be 30% pre-pandemic, right? And that is a huge shift, like that 22% is not a light number to be taken. So literally we've seen during the last 2 years that every enterprise which could pivot to digital, which could give their employees the work from home survived. Enterprises which were not digital, which did not have the ability to work from home, did not survive, right? And that's why it's so important to talk about how to make an organization composable and how to make an enterprise composable. So seeing this, what is the gap here? So we're talking about a digital transformation gap. Now, again, no graph here, but digital transformation gaps arise from quite a few factors, right? Socioeconomic factors. So we are living in a world where there's war and a potential for a bigger war. We are all anticipating a recession, I hope not. And we've just been through a pandemic. And we're not really out of it. We're pretending we're out of it. But it's nice to see you all. Um, so this gap that's arising is because of factors which is outside our control. We don't control any of it. But what we do control is how flexible are we and how we are architecting our business and our technology to adapt to whatever's next that's coming to us, right? And it's just not these environment factors or the socioeconomic factors, it's also technology. Like, I've been in the technology industry for 20 years now. And I've come from mainframes to Oracle, to SOA, if you remember the service-oriented architectures, to microservices. SaaS didn't exist 20 years ago when I worked for Oracle. We called it cloud, but we were still doing the tins and racks in the back end, right? Yeah, so the technology is evolving. And now SaaS is, well, it's the status quo. It's like, what's new about SaaS? Like, everybody is on cloud, right? So what's new? New is RPA, robotic process automation. New is AI. New is customer expectations. And I'll tell you a little anecdote of my own, where I used to be the diligent shopper who used to be in a Sainsbury every Saturday doing my weekly shop. And that was part of my routine. I had time carved out for it. I knew exactly what I would do when I went to Sainsbury. Then came the pandemic, and you couldn't go to a shop, or you wouldn't, rather. It wasn't safe anymore. So we started doing shopping online. And guess what? I've not gone back. Even though I can go back to the shop, I have become the lazy shopper who's filled in that 1 hour of time with something else. But I like doing it on my app because it's just easy and simple. And now I'm becoming the expectant shopper. Oh, that works. Great. Let me. Does that work now? I am not sure. Still not my screen. Okay. Okay, sorry. So I was talking about how lazy I was, and the lazy shopper who doesn't go and who shops on the app, but now I'm also becoming a very highly expectant shopper because I just don't expect to do the shopping. I expect Sainsbury's to remember my card, do the delivery on time, send me tracking messages so that I can be home in that 15-minute or 1 hour slot. I also expect them to suggest related products to me, because I expect that experience to be intelligent. And I expect that experience to be catered to me personally as a shopper. Thank you. Today's my lucky day. I've already done my introduction, so I'm not going to go again. And I've also talked about this code, so I've already done parts of the slide. But this is a transformation gap I was talking about. And I think I'm on the part where we're talking about customer expectations. So customer expectations are changing, and what we expect when we interact digitally with a business or an organization or with our own employers is different. We expect to get hybrid working or work from home, and we expect it to be seamless, and we expect our employers to take care of the security and the risk is introduced by us not being on the corporate network. And all of this expectation leads to literally a plethora of technology that is thrown at us, right? So we have a lot coming at us, and organizations are keeping up. They're not ahead of it, but they're literally keeping up. Okay, what's next? Right, my employees expect a VPN at home, but now they expect the VPN to last for 30 days. They don't want to log in every day. But now they want biometric recognition with it. They want AI so that I can remind them of the corporate certifications that they have. Expectations, expectations. And that is human nature, right? It's not going to stop. I mean, look at the next generation. My 10-year-old expects everything to be a touchscreen. Like, at some point, he'll not even want to touch. He'll want to probably talk to the screen. I don't know. So essentially, this is causing a digital transformation gap. And like I said, over the last year, 58% of customer interactions have gone digital, which is a huge rise. And there's only one answer to it. The answer is composability. Enterprises need to be flexible and adaptable to adapt to whatever's next, whatever trend is next, and whatever's coming next. So how do we do this? I've talked about composability so much, but I thought it would be nice to give you the Gartner definition of composability, right? So the Gartner definition of composability is, it's an organization that delivers business outcomes, not technical outcomes, and adapts to the pace of business change. And it does this is the most important bit for me, through assembly and a combination of business packages, not by building every code from the scratch every time is required. Because if you do that, every project takes 3 years. And that's not what you want to be doing to be a composable enterprise. So the idea is that by 2023, 60% of the mainstream organizations intend to have composable business as a strategic objective. And this is true. Every single CIO or every single business leader, at least I've been talking to in my role, has told me, how do I become composable? I am not sure. And that's where this whole conversation around, but Salesforce is a monolith comes in, right? And that's why I've come to here to you with the point of view that no, we're not a monolith, not essentially. But we are a composable platform and a composable enterprise. Right, so basic concept of composability. Any complex system that works because there are little complex systems that work. And any complex systems is built of systems or simpler systems that were built before that. And it's an evolution, just like the car. So someone evolved a wheel and an engine and an exhaust pipe, and there was a need, and someone looked at something else, and then we had the car. And of course, now we have the Tesla, and in a few years' time, we'll probably have commuting rocket ships. But it has to start somewhere. And this is literally what composability is. In digital world, the little systems that work is an API. You know, in a digital world, the way to make digital composability work is when you expose APIs as business units, when you package APIs as business capabilities, and you think about APIs as, this is the unit of data, or this is the process I use the most, and I use it in different kinds of business, I use it with different lines of business. So how do I make it such that it's reusable and consumable with every single business unit that I have? Because that's the value. You're not building those capabilities. You're reusing those capabilities, and you're building on top of it, and you're evolving to the needs, but you're not necessarily doing it from the scratch every time. So APIs as building blocks, obviously, they are productized for use of consumption. That's a key aspects of treating this as digital blocks. They're easily managed. They can be easily secured because digital security is top of mind for every CISO out there today. You know, yes, we are in a digital world, but we all are worried about our data on the internet. That's why there's GDPR. That's why there are all these regulations trying to protect us, but how protected are we? So security by default is non-negotiable. And no one wants to think about security as at the end of a project. People want security applied when they're doing, and that there's only one way of doing it, that every block of data, every block of API that you expose is secured by nature. And of course, for the whole thing to work in a consumer production environment and to be consumable, it has to be discoverable. If you can't find it, how will you reuse it, right? So that discoverability, that ecosystem is very important. So think about your own experiences and a simple app that you use today. So it's not that this specific retailer selling shoes does the logistics or does the manufacturing or does this warehouse storage. But maybe they are a marketing firm for shoes. Or maybe they are the sellers, but you know, they have a supply chain that feeds into their business. But to us as a consumer, we are unaware of how many businesses or how much data feeds into this, which is external to this business we are buying for. For us, it's all a seamless experience when we go to an app, we choose what we want to buy, we pay for it, and the payment system is again external. We probably use PayPal or our credit cards, and then we get delivery notifications for it. So we use something like a UPS or a DPD, and we know exactly where it is, and we can track the driver and all that stuff. And this is a composable app. The reason it is composable is, look at all the digital touch points it's got. And maybe it's even going to tag you on Twitter and say, hey, how are you enjoying your new red shoes? Who knows, if you give them permission for it, right? But the idea is, composability is the future of innovation. Only when you know that you're not thinking end-to-end building of processes, and you have the data or external APIs or internal APIs to consume and build an experience for your consumer, that's when you truly can think about innovation. And because you stop focusing your efforts on building and you start focusing your efforts on composing experiences, and then you go customer first. And we've talked about CX in one of the previous sessions. And that's where you think you start with CX, you start with the customer experience, you work backwards, and you know what you have in order to compose that customer experience. So I've talked about the businesses and IT working together as a key component of doing the composable enterprise. And this is the operating model, where the business focuses on the top layer of experience. So is it a mobile app? Is it a web app? Do I need to think about a shopping cart? So really the front-end experiences or the product offering. And IT talks about exposing the data layer and talks about this is where my customer data sits, this is where my orders sit, this is where my credentials are managed, this is how I manage security. And it's a separation of concern, but both come together because there's a consumer-producer relationship where the business is a consumer of what IT produces. But there's also an element of empowerment here. The businesses need to be empowered to consume and compose their own experiences. They don't need to write the code to expose the data, but once IT has exposed that as a digital block, which is an API, we are talking about business technologists now, people who understand business, but who can go in and do drag and drop and do a workflow, right? And that's where Salesforce and MuleSoft products like Composer come in, where you can drag and drop a workflow using the digital assets or using the APIs that are already exposed to you as a marketplace. And in that marketplace, you go and say, okay, I need customer information here, right? But instead of writing the data to again expose customer information from your MDM, you look at the marketplace and say, there is an API which gives me the information I need, and I have the rights to go and consume it and build a process or build an experience or put it on my mobile app to make sure that I'm coming up with a holistic 360 customer view. And that is what this whole operating model is about. So every organization today is writing something called a composable strategy, which is driven by IT, but it is business-led. Because again, it starts from the customer experience and not backwards. So there are 4 pillars of connectivity, composability, or like I say, 4 C's of composability. So one is obviously the connect. You can't be composable if you're not integrated. You can't have a customer 360 if you're not integrated. So you need data from various systems, outside Salesforce, inside Salesforce, other clouds, other providers, third-party partners, but you need to have a connecting layer. Then you have control. It's not enough to connect. You should know where you're connecting. You should have governance on your data, on your security, on your APIs, and also what's coming into your organization. Then is the compose element, where we talk about, well, business technologists. We are not relying on IT to do everything for you. You actually have people within the line of business who can consume what's produced by IT in a safe way and compose those experiences. And then collaborate is all about the marketplace and building the ecosystems. So in your case, it could be an external ecosystem, an internal ecosystem, a developer portal where the developers have access to all the APIs exposed to your underlying systems of record. So how do we do this? Now here's where we talk about product a little bit. So connectivity is, for those of you who are aware of MuleSoft, is all about our bread and butter, the AnyPoint Platform, right? That's how you integrate. Now we've introduced, I know Michelle just talked about async APIs, and we've introduced async APIs as well. And actually, we did a Trailblazer DX, sorry. Would love to do a TEDx on this. We did a Trailblazer DX in April in San Francisco, where we talked about how Salesforce Platform API, or Events API that Michelle talked about, and how AnyPoint Platform and async API actually work, what the architecture looks like, and how actually one is complementary to the other when you're thinking enterprise architecture. The The second one is all about control, which is, again, MuleSoft's Cloud Hub or the cloud platform, where you can govern and monitor actually now any API. It doesn't even have to be a MuleSoft API. So if you have APIs, AWS APIs or SAP APIs or APIs built on other platform, you can actually have a single pane of view for all your APIs, because MuleSoft Flex Gateway, it does universal API management for you. So you're able to govern and monitor everything that comes in together in your organization without being locked into a platform for building APIs. That's the most important thing. The third one is all about composition. So we've just acquired a robotic process automation company called ServiceTrace. We are going to release something, I think the GA date is July so far, on RPA on MuleSoft. And that's going to be, again, the empowerment we were talking about for the business technologist, right? Because we are expecting these business technologists to use products like Composer, which is drag and drop, build a workflow using APIs, and actually compose your processes. And then the last one, but the very important one, is collaboration, which is the community. So Salesforce has Experience Cloud, which now works actually to expose a marketplace for MuleSoft APIs. And that's, again, a new product. We used to call it the Community Cloud, but now Experience Cloud is coming out, and that's bigger and better and easier to use. And it's the same experience Community Cloud gave you, but easier to compose and easier to expose APIs. The idea is, if you built every API and that API became discoverable automatically via configuration, you won't have to rely on a developer's memory to go and publish it on a marketplace, if that's what you wanted, really, or internally or externally. So those are the 4 things that MuleSoft has done towards taking a step towards the composable enterprise and how we help the whole digitalization piece. Now, I wanted to address how is Salesforce composable, and what does it mean in terms of Customer 360, where we're saying, well, what's composability? What's connected applications? So here you see each block of Salesforce, and this is huge blocks, you can break it down, essentially provides business capability. So if you look at Commerce Cloud or Marketing Cloud, or even Salesforce Core, Service Cloud, Sales Cloud, they provide you with the business capabilities, which are your building blocks. And remember, Salesforce is API first. So you can actually expose and package and secure each of these business capabilities via APIs, expose them via a marketplace, use them in a composer, and use them to build an end-to-end customer experience, which is more than Salesforce, which is really that whole 360 view that we've been talking about. And underlying that is the MuleSoft platform, which provides you API management, API governance, security, and all the other capabilities you need to connect, expose your APIs. And this is just a very simplistic example of what does a business package or what is a packaged business capability look like. And in this case, if you look at, there are 2 objects that we've taken from Service Cloud. So let's say there is a business capability called log ticket, which is essentially creating a case into Salesforce using an API. And there's a business capability called notify customer. And this could be anything. This could be connected to your Marketing Cloud. But this together is a customer experience, is a customer care package, a business unit that you've created by putting together 2 APIs, creating a process API, and then packaging it as a unit of business capability, which maybe then you give to the line of business person who deals with customer care or whose job it is to make sure the customer experiences are relevant. And they consume it in their processes to make sure that they have a log ticket data and a notify customer data, whether it's using a mobile app or a web app or an in-store relationship management. So this is just a very simplistic example of how Salesforce can be broken down into business composable packages and how you can expose and consume it within MuleSoft or, for that matter, any platform. And this is possible because Salesforce is API first. Now, we are all architects, and I did a poll just before, and the last time I checked the poll was Salesforce is it a monolith, is it not a monolith, or it depends? And unsurprisingly, most of the majority said it depends. You're right, it depends. We are all architects, it's our favorite phrase, it depends, right? There's nothing simplistic, like, saying, there's no black and white in architecture. And architecture is context specific, and this is just an example. But you could build this or recompose this business package itself in so many ways, and it depends on what you do. So really, it depends on whether you treat Salesforce as a monolith, or have you architected Salesforce? Because Salesforce is so easy to use. A lot of people get confused with, this is so easy, I can just do it because, I did my admin 101, I'm an expert. But there's a reason architects exist. They actually look beyond the platform, and they look into the enterprise and how Salesforce fits in as one of the jigsaw puzzles in the enterprise. So you're right, it depends, but you can make Salesforce composable, and you can, if you architect in the right mindset, make composable as business capability unit blocks into your enterprise architecture landscape. So that's what I wanted to talk about, really. I know I've overrun a little bit on time, so I'm going to keep it very short. I want you to go away with 3 takeaways from today. First of all, composability is not technology. It's not technology architecture, it's a business architecture. And if you remember that, you will be able to bring in the right stakeholders and the right people into the conversation to make this a success. And then there are 3 things which you need to start with for composability. Have a strategy, and the strategy has to be outside in, which is value-focused, not technology-focused. It's not about exposing what you have, it's about finding out what you need, and then coming back and architecting the business blocks or the digital units that you need to expose. The second one is structure. Structure is important for every single program to be successful. So get executive buy-in, have a product focus mentality rather than project focus mentality. And of course, there are methodologies to do this. At MuleSoft, we talk about API-led. If you haven't, segregation logically of a system layer API, process layer API experience. So experience is where your consumers come in, processes come in, and system is where IT is actually exposing your systems of record from underneath them. And of course, iterative delivery. Start small, scale fast, think big, have the big picture, but start with an MVP project. And if you do this, it's a step-by-step approach. You will see the difference in how your enterprise is ready for that next challenge. When something needs to change at short notice, how you don't have to scramble to kick off a 2-year project to do that. Because believe me, in 2 years' time, that requirement is obsolete already. And I have been at Oracle, I have done this, right? So by the time we've gone live, we've had hundreds of change requests already because we're already, doing business a new way. So the idea is not to take a long time. The idea is to go live, try your MVP, and evolve as you go. And with that, I would like to say thank you and take any questions. And I do apologize for all the issues and starting late, but hopefully I haven't got you late for your next session. Any questions?
How do you manage efficiencies in Composable Enterprise? So if you are creating business packages, again, I'm thinking technology here to a certain extent. So if you are creating those business packages where, let's say, 5 APIs, again, just random number, are being used to create that business package, the same set of 5 APIs, or maybe a subset of those 5 APIs are again being used in a different business package. And if you are creating a process map that basically connects these business packages, aren't we introducing more inefficiencies?
Now, you said a key point there, that the 5 APIs are being used in a separate business package.
Let's say
subset, okay. So that's the idea. If you subset of APIs which constantly get used differently, then maybe we look at your business package. Maybe you've already created a monolith by using 5 APIs in a business package. So I think it's all about value. Granular you can go. Now, of course, there's a balance between going micro-granular and going big monoliths, which with service-oriented architecture the idea was good. The idea was the same thing as composability, but people built services which were so big that they were monoliths in themselves. And I think there is a potential to make the same mistake with this one as well. And efficiency-wise, like I said, if you're exposing API via API and then reusing it, you'll probably gain more from the reuse point than you lose on the latency. But of course, you have to look at other factors like latency and volume and processor speed and all of that stuff. Any other questions? Okay, in that case, thank you very much for listening to me, and have a great day.